Hello, everyone, and welcome to the midweek program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are on the rooftop because it's cold today, and we wanted to get in a nice sunny spot. Of course, you know, the way the sun works and how it's always moving, and there's shadows and that kind of stuff, it could get a little bit ironic here by the end of the program, but for now, we've got a beautiful program for you here today. We are doing cool swags from the garden. So we've got Paige, our director of horticulture, as well as Tim Alderton, our research technician. They've got a whole bunch of beautiful plants, lots of evergreen plants, lots of plants that are even not so evergreen, even some grasses, honestly. We are about to make art, and we are going to get all kinds of creative with it, and we invite you to do the same. But it should be a beautiful program, and I am all kinds of excited for it. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I will pass things over to Greg and Tim to show us some cool swags for the garden as soon as this aeroplane...
helicopter.
It's a helicopter. Okay,
helicopter,
you know,
yeah.
that's okay.
It was getting a sneak peek.
They're spying on us.
So we are 'tis the season. We just celebrated the eating holiday of Thanksgiving, and we're all freshly returned. And for us, that means we're prepping for our winter wreath workshops. So we've been busy cutting stuff and getting things ready. We'll set things up tomorrow. So this is a good opportunity for us to talk about kind of in that same vein of decorating with nature's bounty, building something on a little bit smaller scale that allows you to be extremely creative with what you have in your own gardens. If you've got a neighbor who doesn't mind you wandering, if you've got a big yard and room to do these sorts of things.
Some trimming you need to do?
Some trimming you need to do. Myself, working in horticulture as long as I have, every garden I've ever worked at, I've taken some liberties and decorated my house with greens, making swags, making garland, even just arrangements on tables. Tim is known for throwing things together for our talks and some other things. I've done a little bit of that too. But what we want to talk to you today is making these swags. And 99.9% of what you see here, Tim has thrown together. I did one about 10 minutes ago so that I could stand next to him and talk intelligently about this. But we're going to talk about the materials that you use, both the plants.
It's really simple.
It's very simple. The different things you can use to tie them together, being very safe with those things, with the things that you're cutting with and the wires and the ropes. Some things to use, some things maybe you don't want to use, places to put them so that they last the longest. But it's pretty much, as Blake said, it's art. It's open to your creativity, what you want to use. And I've used a multitude of things, and so has Tim. So I think the first thing we'll talk about is some of the tools that we use. You know, obviously, your Felcos to cut the green material with. And what we like to do, we're very orderly here. We use our plastic buckets, and we'll segregate all the things together. And this is a good example of having some things, different things together that you can use. So it kind of keeps all your eggs in one basket. It's your go-to for when you're pulling these things together.
We have a little bit more than the average person.
We do have a little bit more. We go a little bit extreme, and we've got a much bigger palette than most people would have. But the easiest thing to do the swags, to tie them together.
There's you can do it as simple as string. This is some binder twine we have, cut it into just, a foot or so, maybe 15 inches. Or I've had this wire has been lying around here at the Arboretum longer than I have been working here. and that'll be 19 years in just a few weeks. So I put it to use. It's something that's sitting around. That's what I use. I use things what I have.
You can buy florist wire. You can buy the pre-cut pieces that are coated. You can use whatever. This is an
aluminum wire that we've had, like I said, for decades. It's probably been around here more than 20 years, and it's perfectly fine and dandy. But you might have something in your basement or your garage that will stand in for one of these type of things. It's just something to wrap a group of branches around, basically. And I looked up what a swag was, and what is swag today is like, oh, stuff you get at a conference or something. That for those freebies, they're steals, is what they was one of the descriptions. But we're using it in the sense of Christmas swags, and that was a bunch of evergreen foliage, basically. Is what it amounted to. Is
a lot of times it's the
So
scraps
like,
you have for making wreaths or other things, or
you
pruning.
get your Christmas tree and you don't need the branches at the bottom, and you take them off so you can make a fresh cut and get your tree in the stand, and you're left with these branches. And that's actually what we use more or less for our wreaths workshop. Is the boughs that they actually sell them by the pound, apparently, in the mountains. And so that's where some of that came from. But I went through the garden on Monday and Tuesday, and actually yesterday and this morning too. But there's some cupressus over here. There was a tree that we didn't really need anymore. And
it had outgrown its space.
So
and
it became
we had sheared it up as high as we could reach. And Tim and I were walking by it one day, and he said, "What do you think about cutting that down for a wreath?" And I was like, "Yes." And I came back Tuesday, and it was sitting out in front of our building.
So
all nice and cut up. So it's getting a second use.
Fun fact about the cupressus:
Here we go.
it has delightfully scented foliage.
Oh, it's
I can
wonderful.
smell it from
It's
here,
it's a Cupressus arizonica, and it's one that we actually didn't know the name of. It was probably either blue ice or Carolina sapphire, one of the two.
Yeah.
And again, it was in the back of the perennial border, and it was kind of taking up more space than I wanted. So perfect time to think about taking those things
Most
out.
people won't even know that it's gone. I hate to say.
But the other thing is, I see people in October and November, or actually September and October, and they have the lawn people come through, and they have them shear their hedges and prune things. And it's like, you have to look at that all winter long. Why didn't you just save that for a few months and do some pruning, and you can make some stuff out of it? Yep. And that's why, I've been wanting to take this tree out, but I was saving it. And I did that with a few other things too. So, but you can use this as a time just to take a branch here and there. There's that branch that's come out a little too far in your along your sidewalk, for instance. And it's annoying you, but you didn't have the heart to cut it off until you had a purpose. And now's a great time to do that. So we've incorporated things like that into this, but there's just general things in here. So it's really simple stuff. So
show how to.
So what I do with the wire, anyways, I cut a piece of wire, about 12, 15 inches long, and I actually bend it over. And you could use a tool for this, but I'm not that coordinated with tools, so I do it by hand. And I probably should do gloves, but I don't like gloves.
It's got leather skin.
My hands are so no. But anyways, the average person would wear gloves. I just put two little ends on this, and this actually is really useful. Then you have this. You can put this around. I've wrapped these here, and I put the screwdriver through that, and I can twist this and tighten it really well that way.
For sure.
And then I also have a built-in hanger when I'm done.
And you can use pliers when you're.
You could do that. I
I
cut it with pliers. I don't cut the wire by hand. But you can do that too. But so simple to do that. Or, like we said, some twine. You can do the same thing. I don't know if that'll work on that, except for if you go.
This is kind of slippery, but just you can make a little slip knot in the end and pull it tight and loop back on.
And then you just tie it like you would anything else.
And the nice thing about that is when you're done with this, when it dries out, the whole thing can go in the compost.
This one you wouldn't be able to, but that one is sisal twine. So yeah, this is totally biodegradable here. This I'd need to take off the wire.
Yep.
And that is a great thing about that. It's just minimal garbage too. So, and you're recycling to add to that. So, I went, like we said, I went around the garden and cut things, and I did some different things in here. I have some thyme, I have some eucalyptus, I have rosemary, I have, let's see, this is a platycladus orientalis from the garden. I have some boxwood, which is a Buxus harlandii that we have in the garden. There's a little bit of cryptomeria, and the cryptomeria was a reversion that was in another dwarf one, and it's like I needed to get rid of that again. It's taking advantage of those things I don't really need, and it just makes a simple thing. You can come back if you have a bow or whatever you want to put on here to accentuate that matches whatever you're doing. Just some simple things. And if you're putting these inside, most of this is not going to shed. I take into account of that. This is a dogwood which we have right outside of our building, and I was looking at it the other day, and it's like I just bump it, and
the colors are great.
The color is wonderful.
That would be great.
The fruit are just going to fall off.
They're going to fall off. One of the things, the lessons I've learned with making these things is, say for example, you're going to hang this on your door. If this were a wreath or the swag, every time you shut the door, the berries are going to rain down and end up in your house and on your shoes and things like that. So when you're building these things, one of the things to think about is longevity. Is it going to be in the sun? Is it going to dry out? Is it going to stay cold like this and it's going to last forever? Is it going to be inside and dry out quicker? Is it going to be someplace it's going to get bumped into? Those are all kinds of some of the guidelines to think about when throwing these together.
And throwing them together, literally, it's basically a little hand bouquet is what you're making, but you're doing it without flowers, more or less. There's minimal, I mean, there are some fleshy things in here, like, but then it's going to get hung, so it's just going to dry there. So it's like you're drying herbs, and in this case, herbs are great in this. Like I have a salvia in here, a sage. It's a cooking sage. This is one called New Yar, and you know. Then something that's not going to die here is my spent flower on my hydrangea, but they can be a little bit brittle, so I do watch those. That might not be one to put on the door or somewhere it's going to get brushed into. But this is a magnolia that we have. This is Serendipity, which is one that we've been promoting. It has a smaller leaf. It's actually a little easier to use than the southern magnolias, but you kind of get some of the same characteristics, but it's in a miniature, and it's kind of great in that sense. And ours always needs a little bit of pruning. And of course, I used the Fraser fir boughs, and you can. This is the backside in this case, and I used it in the front. But on that one, to give you a totally different look, I flip them over, and you get that beautiful blue, green, or silver colors. And you can orient your greens differently sometimes and get a totally different look on them, which is kind of fun.
It's completely, you know, however your creativity leans. I love these blue colors, and I'm always drawn to those in plants in the landscape. The Arizona cypress, I absolutely love that because of the color and the texture. But you kind of want that dark green backdrop and work off of that with your lighter colors, with your berries and stuff that are going to kind of stand out. And there's no, you know, it can be as big as you want it to be.
That's a little bigger, but that's still not even that big. But I made just some small ones. And this is a bit more asymmetrical. The rest of these I've done are semi-fan shaped. This one's kind of a sweep. And I thought of it after, which I couldn't find 3 other pieces that were kind of the same, but you could put this on its side and have a second one over here, or just use this as a table decoration, not just hang it. But in this bouquet, actually, I have some Photocarpus, which is a coral berry, and then actually an English, this is an adult English ivy, variegated English ivy that we have in the White Garden, which I kind of despise ivies, but this is a perfect time of year to use them. And again, I have the eucalyptus there, and that's just a simple thing there. I have what I think 4 different things in there. When I was home for Thanksgiving back in Pennsylvania, my mom, I was helping her do a little pre-decoration because my brother and his family were coming in for Iowa, and we were having a pseudo Christmas at the same time as Thanksgiving. And so I decorated a little of the front of the house, but I just went in the yard and I got a few branches of Norway spruce and some rhododendron foliage and some, I think I had holly, and I just put them in, and then we put some balls on them and I hung them up. It was so simple.
It doesn't take any time. And this is a really good example of kind of that evergreen backdrop with the stuff in front. And I like kind of that fan shape that Tim kind of has consistent with.
These are great for doors, and they're great for a gift at this time of the year. If you're going to a party, you can make a quick little gift.
On the way to the car with your pruners.
Yes, exactly. When you forgot to get something for your host, you can make a simple gift there. And in this one, I actually used there's wax myrtle in here. So I think it's morella now again.
Morella.
Or is it or is it back to Miraca? I can't remember. Its name keeps on going back and forth, but it smells nice. And that, again, I use salvia in this and rosemary in this. There's fragrance in those. So you have that little extra bang for your buck there. Some willow stems in here. This is a Japanese holly, and it is drops of gold, I think. And then this is Mary Berry, which is a hybrid holly, along with some arborvitae in here and some cryptomeria. Just something super simple.
I really like cryptomeria. I'm always drawn to that too because
it's a different texture.
It's a different texture. I love eucalyptus. This is one we drive by out the back of the garden. And walking through the garden today, this lindera, this spice bush caught my eye.
Yeah.
It'll hold on to these leaves. It's that marcescence. It'll hold on to these leaves for a long time in the garden. But that color is kind of mimicking and pulling, doing a color echo off the stem of the eucalyptus. And that's just 3 simple things in there. And it just has so much texture. And as Tim said, a great thing to bring if you're going to a holiday party for a gift, hang off a door.
Your neighbor who's shut in?
Yeah,
it's
an easy, simple thing to do. Hanging these on fence posts.
Yep.
I've done that in the past, or going down a set of stairs on every beam. It's just a really good thing to do. And kind of in the theme of things with leaves, I've made these with some of the oaks that hold on. Talking about using deciduous leaves, oaks are really good. Witch hazels are also good. I made a bunch of these for a witch hazel talk at a garden that I worked at, with the leaves and even some flowers on, and take into consideration how long those are going to last from a shelf life perspective. Tim mentioned using colored stems. That's a simple, easy thing to use. Willows are good. This is not white lightning.
Winter lightning.
Winter lightning, box elder, Acer negundo. Tim mentioned some delicate stuff. I've used ornamental grasses to make these. I've used these in Christmas trees, but they're not going to last long in an area where they're going to move around a lot. I love the colors and textures you get with these. There's so many colors in the seed pods of ornamental grasses. They add a lot of interest. I've seen entire reeds made out of these, and they're quite pretty, but that's not going to last a long time outdoors or someplace where it's going to get bumped into. If you bring these things indoors, and you've got cats, that might be a topic that might be subject to countless hours of entertainment for indoor pets. So these are all very important things to bring up and think about.
For sure.
So I'm going to maybe throw something together here if we get done before we lose connectivity again. So I'm using some different. You go ahead. You talk.
Being a professed magnolia addict, I really like using these for anything, nature decorated or oriented. You can't beat the colors that you get off of those flower buds. They're so pubescent and catch the light really interestingly. These are going to last a long time in an arrangement. Tim brought up a good point. I said I hate cutting these off because I'm taking flowers with me, and being the optimist that he is, he said they're probably going to get nailed in the cold anyway. So use them for decorations and get that use out of them when you can. But it just calls to mind just being creative, and whatever strikes your fancy that you're attracted to in the garden is fodder for using it to decorate indoors and out of doors. And speaking of Brie Arthur, she's the master at doing that with her flowers and vases and things like that. We learn from each other and pick these things up, and I think it's important it's a good way to interact with the garden at particularly this time of the year.
And I love that you mentioned like the ephemerality of certain things. Like none of them is really going to last that long, but like you get to enjoy it for that little bit of time anyway. And if like we're at a time of year where how often are you going outside? Like if you're bringing something in just to enjoy it for 3 days, that's amazing.
That Christmas tree.
Honestly, for sure. Like you just set your expectations that this isn't going to be here forever. You can really enjoy it for what it is while it's here.
And it's so simple. There's 5 different things there, and that's going to add so much interest indoors or outside and really bring that home, I think.
So let's talk a little bit about like the design aspects of it. You just mentioned like you can make really beautiful ones with like 3, with like 4 different kinds of things. Is there like a limit?
It could be. It depends how. I mean, you can make them as simple or as complex as you really
Right.
want.
I mean, sometimes less is more. Sometimes you can have it can be too busy or too kind of cumbersome. But I think the way that I learned how to do this years ago was start with that evergreen base.
Okay.
So you can work off of that, and you've got that dark background, and having that green color, and then put your lighter colors. Things like the twigs you can put in at the end, and you can kind of fan them out. Or whatever you want, and also it gives it a little bit of height and lengthens it out without having to use the greens. There is no magic formula for that. Using that evergreen backdrop is a good base, and it gives the substance when you tie the wire on to kind of hold it all together.
Yeah, so I just simply threw this one together in a matter of moments.
Of course you did.
Yes, with what I had here. I mean, I had the Fraser fir, like we were talking about, and I have some Cryptomeria lemonade, which has a little bit of a yellow tint to it. And then this is actually a daisy relative, and I got to see it in the wild last year at this time in Argentina, which I missed out on. All the wreath making last year. It was terrible. So anyways, this is Hyalus, which grows in dunes, and anyways, actually it's growing right there here on the roof garden. I have some thyme, I have some pycnanthum, or mountain mint. This is Pycnanthum muticum. It's perennial plant of the year for 2025. And then this is one of my truly favorite plants right here, which actually I have a branch down here. This is Buddleia loricata. It's a South African species or butterfly bush called, I think, bush sage is what they call it. But look at the backside of the leaves. And I know I've mentioned this plant so many times through the years. I love it for this. It will dry white with a dark green on the other side. But I mentioned about what side of the leaf to use. You can vary that. And this one you flip over and you get that spectacular white, or you get a little more green on that side. But it'll dry perfectly like that. And then I just threw a little piece of hydrangea in here. I have some, let's see, bottle brush, which is right here. And I love the seed pods, which hold on for years, literally, on these. They might have 2 or 3 years worth of seed pods on them, but this is Callistemum woodlander's red, or woodlander's hardy. You see it both ways. I don't know which one it is. I can never remember which way is correct anymore. But for those in Australia who are watching us, that's a native down there. You might have those, and or eucalypt, which we have some eucalypt back here, but I didn't put any of that in this bouquet. But those are just some things I threw together so quickly.
Tim,
that's simple.
Now hold on a second, because I've seen your floral arrangements, and they are truly delightful. And
I use the whole garden in them.
Well, could you maybe explain your process, kind of what's going through your head while you're choosing what you choose?
Greg was saying, I mean, for the background on this one, it's dark green. So I'm using some lighter colored things.
So you're thinking I'm going to go out, find a good background, and then what? How do you know which pieces to pull?
It depends what you have available. It's like I had 3 things back home in Pennsylvania. I had rhododendron, I had some holly, and I had pine. Actually, I didn't use holly. I used white pine, and I used Norway spruce, which the Norway spruce is very similar in appearance to the Fraser fir, but it doesn't like it down here so much. But it's dark green and small needles. And then I had some white pine. We have white pine all over our property back home. Cut some some of those, which were kind of a blue-green, long needles, and then the rhododendron were the contrasting large green leaves. So it's just that contrast. I didn't get a lot of color variation, but I had some there. And then you can, you could put a bow on this. You don't have to, or you could just use the plant material as your whole swag. But I did that back home, and so it's just simple. Again, and this is some Phoracarpus berries here. The drops of gold holly and a little bit of eucalyptus, and I have it looks like either a platyclatus or an arborvitae or a thuja in there, along with the Fraser fir. So simple, nothing complex.
The yellows always catch my eye.
no kidding.
I'm always
Yeah.
drawn to
The blues and yellows
stuff.
is what I like.
Me too.
I mean, the
I like-
red, I mean, that's traditional
It's
for
very
Christmas,
traditional.
but these can be, you don't have to make these just for Christmas.
Honestly.
These can be any time of the year, actually.
Yeah.
But they're great through our winter months because you have these type of things out in your landscape. You can go out if you have a field near your house and you can cut some dried wildflowers.
broom
Much like,
sedge, anything.
yeah, oh, where did I put that?
Surely it's
watch
here
the-
somewhere.
I have it down here. I have a carex.
Yeah, there we go. And it's stuff that catches your eye. Like I've walked by this
So-
spice bush 3 times today.
Sure.
And just that color that's in the eucalyptus, I walked by it on the way up here and I was like, I want a piece of that for this.
I'll be honest, it was a bit of a leading question. I wanted him to say, you just follow your heart. You
Well,
just,
there's-
whatever you see that
there's a-
excites you and ignites that fire within you, that's what you pick for your swag.
There's a lot of that. There's definitely a lot of that.
So this is a carex. So it's in the White Garden. I have I couldn't think of the name earlier. It's Carex scaposa,
Yes.
which actually the flowers are pink on them when they come out in the spring and then again in the fall. But now they're in the seed heads. And there, I just added that quickly in here.
Here and there.
Love that texture. It's totally different. And this will hold together unlike some other relatives. But going back to wildflowers, this is not a native one, but there are native ones. This is a verbicena. You'll see these, but I could
I love
include
those
that
things.
in there. This might be something that would shed a little bit more once it dries out. That would be the only problem. This would be a good one to use outside, maybe not so much inside.
That one, I saw that one maybe yesterday or the day before in the early morning light. The foliage,
Yes.
it's like kind of grayish blue.
I would take the foliage off personally.
I would leave it on. If you see it in the right light,
Yeah.
the contrast with the yellow and the whole, it's like it's becoming more mute over time. Like
Yeah.
it was really magical. And then like that plant when it was in full flower was humming. It was covered
the
in
bees
pollinators.
adore it.
And the thing smelled like chocolate too.
Yeah, it smells.
Delightful.
Tootsie Rolls taste
Yeah.
like it smells. is
For
what I say.
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely
Tootsie Rolls.
delightful. This is a flavor of the month for me.
Honestly.
I've had my eye on this ever since it started flowering.
What was the name of that plant again?
It's a verbicena, and I think we have it as Microptera, but I'm kind of doubting that name is correct at this point.
Okay.
Even the stems, as stout as they are, and with the little wings that are on them, there's everything to like about this plant.
And it only, you just have to have a little space though. It does get 10
gets big.
10 feet tall. And it doesn't flower until late October, November.
Yeah.
So, but use your imagination. Use
Yes.
what you have around.
Yep.
You could also, if you don't have this in your own garden, you can buy stuff. But this is just making something simple. Up here on the rooftop, I'm looking out beyond me, and I have lavender up here. I have some rue over here. I could even use, I've already used rosemary, but I have rosemary up here. Those are some great things that would work really well in it. If you have any of those in your landscape, perfectly fine. I actually see some seed heads of a plant that's from the Helianthella, which is from the Rocky Mountains. It's a daisy, and it's a little sunflower, and those would work. You have some cool things there. You have pomegranates.
Pomegranates.
That's State Fair.
Nature's Christmas ornaments. Really cool. In a wreath, you could use them in something like this. I mean, there's the color echo again.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, look at that.
Very, very cool. But I just
Yes.
love those
Look,
colors together.
The colors, that's, yes.
It's spot,
It doesn't have to be anything that's extreme. It can just be
No.
some subtle. It's the subtle
Just stuff
variations.
that caught my eye walking by it today.
Agnatia speciosa.
This was a hot tree when it first came out, but that would be a cool thing and to incorporate in some of these sorts of things too. Whatever catches your eye.
And I don't know. I showed Magnolia earlier in one of these, but you couldn't see it as well. But the buds on this is again our serendipity, and the buds on that are just petable.
Yeah.
They are. No kidding.
And then again, that would go with that.
The color, there it is again.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So we've hoped that we've inspired you some.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do we have any questions?
There were a handful of questions. First off, Catherine, our wonderful volunteer manager, excuse me, she wants to know, do you need to do anything to help lengthen the season on them? She says she saw Jason Reeves talk about using wilt proof.
I've heard of
and
doing that. You could do
local
that.
gardening group said to pre-soak stuff in Sprite.
I don't know that one.
She wants to know if it's necessary
I don't do
or
any of
helpful.
those, but I mean, if you want them to last longer, you could use an antidesiccant like
Which is what
wilt-proof.
wilt-proof is. That's not Jason's. Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay.
If if you live somewhere where they're going to be in really crazy up and down temperatures, ours are more temporary.
And if you want them to last for a long time, like I know Erin Weston, who does magnolia
Magnolias.
wreaths and stuff, she uses, I think, lemon pledge. Sprays lemon pledge on them, and that is it acts like the wilt proof to prolong the life of the wreath or the greens.
Keeps the leaves from drying
and it
out.
gives them that gloss
Very
too.
shiny.
So,
Okay, sure.
yeah. So I mean, there's some little tricks you can use, but it's not
Don't do it to
necessary.
your live plants.
Yeah, don't do it to your life. It's not a necessity.
No. It's a good question.
Okay. Marilyn wants to know, does the foliage of Elysium Florida Sunshine do well in swags?
I almost brought that up.
I used it a couple years ago in wreaths. I don't know how it held up. I didn't ask how the wreaths, but I think it might.
I have my experience with it is it dries out pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah.
Once you cut it, it dries out, but the color is fantastic. I walked by it 3 times and I almost cut some.
I have used it for the wreath workshops before.
Yeah.
But fresh, and then you let it dry, and it again, if you have it, not want to have it on a door, that's going to get.
And that reflected heat.
In the
too.
reflective heat, have it outside on a shaded area. You could probably do it. Indoors, I would have it someplace it's not going to get knocked around, or you'll probably have the leaves on the floor.
Yeah.
And what about Abelia kaleidoscope?
I have not used abelias.
Okay.
I have a feeling they might shed their leaves.
Sure.
Just a thought, just because the way they do work, but they may hold on to them.
They've certainly got a lot of color, but I think that they would dry out really.
They're
quickly.
small and fairly thin-leafed plants.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, like this Buddleia, will become brittle, but it has hairy leaves on the one side. The stomata are keeping it from dry out. It's waxy on the top and it's hairy on the bottom. That prolongs its life. Time, it's an herb. Things like that. Pines and stuff I would not personally use indoors.
White pine is used a lot to make
Garland and stuff.
garland and stuff.
But I would think it would shed.
Yeah,
Just
and
know
it
it.
would dry
Growing
out so
up, we
quickly.
always had a Scotch pine, which was an inexpensive, cheap tree where I was from, and they would ultimately drop. But we have here in the South now, in North Carolina in particular, Fraser fir, which is considered the Cadillac of greens to use, and they tend to hold their needles really well.
Yeah.
Diane's asking, after treatment, should you not compost? I assume if you're using like wilt-proof or something like that.
I mean, it's going to break down.
It's going to break down.
It's going to break down.
Yeah,
you should compost.
Even the lemon pledge, I think, would be fine, because it's just some oils. It's nothing terrible.
It's a wax-based product.
Yeah.
That's very, very safe.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's been around forever.
Okay. And Carolyn wants to know, if you're making a wreath, I assume you use shorter stems in your bunches and attach it to a circular frame. Do you have any tips for this?
Come to our sign up early next year for our wreath workshop.
I think we sent out the email in August.
Yeah, and
so make sure you're a member in August, and make sure you are at your inbox at 12 o'clock noon. My mom actually signed up for the wreath, for the wine and wreath workshops with my sister this year. She was in her inbox at noon that day. She was camped out, ready to go.
You have to.
But to answer her question, yes, we use a wire frame. We use a crimping method on, which is you make bundles and you crimp them on. Though you can just take a wire frame. I remember my mom and my aunt and uncle, they would take an old metal hanger and make a wreath on that. We would use club mosses and wire them on. You use a finer wire, but you can do the same thing with bundles of other greens.
Sure.
And that's how
crimping is the way to go.
The crimping is an easy way to do it, but you don't have that at home necessarily. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that appears to be all of the questions that have come in for today. Yes, it does. It does. So thank you so much, Tim and Greg, for pulling all this together and sharing your artistic expertise with us.
Just use your own creativity.
Yeah, for sure.
Follow your hearts.
There it is. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Midweek program. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We will have Sophia McCusker, our nursery technician, going over good plants for kids. So that should be an absolutely wonderful program. We hope we will see you all then. Y'all take care.